I was in that situation, like fresh out of college. I was a kid. I didn't have any money. I didn't know what I was doing. And what happened was we called it Dark House, me and my 3 roommates, because it was just because it was just a joke at that point. It was like kind of like our lives were so bad that it kind of was just funny. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we were into it. Like we had parties without power, and we had glow sticks, and you had to take a glow stick into the shower with you because otherwise you couldn't see anything when you were taking a shower.
It sounds like as kids, like people who go through traumatic stuff, and then as adults they realize how bad it was, but as their memory of it as a kid was like an adventure. But you did that as an adult. Like
it was fucked up. It shouldn't have happened, and we definitely should have sort of seeked legal recourse, but we just didn't know any better. So what happened was we were renting a house that belonged to a woman that died 3 years previous, and it turned out that her nephew was collecting our rent on her behalf, and I guess you're not allowed to do that if the person died. You can't just collect rent money from property if it wasn't sort of explicitly left to you in their will. And I guess she didn't have it. So technically what happened was the house became the estate of California. And so this guy had been collecting rent for years illegally. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he went to jail or whatever. But basically one day, a nice woman in a suit came by and she's like, hey, just so you know, we're not going to raise your rent. But this house belongs to the state of California now, and we're going to sell it. But this whole time, you're protected. Your rent's not going to increase, but you got to make the checks out to us now. And they eventually sold it to one of those student housing companies that just guts places and raises the rent. And because the tenant laws were so strong, they tried to strong arm us out of there, but they couldn't really do anything except in the original lease. The landlord, the dead landlord, was the one paying for all the utilities. And somehow
landlord.
Yeah, the ghost landlord was paying the utilities somehow. But then once it changed hands to California and then to the new student housing group, somehow they were like, oh, well, we never saw the original lease. We can't be expected to pay the utilities. That's not in the agreement. And so, basically what happened was they stopped paying for the utilities. And the worst part was we were willing to pay for utilities, but when we tried to contact LADWP, they said, well, you can't start a new account
until they cancel the old account.
It's still under their account. We were like,
holy shit.
Why? So we tried calling. How could you not pay for the utilities if it's under your account? We literally can't pay for it right now. And they're like, well, you got to figure it out. And so once the 19 days were up, we did not have power. And the funny thing was,
my God, that is brilliant.
I assumed when I came home and the lights didn't turn on, I assumed everything was off. And so I tried to reheat the food that I had in the fridge before it went bad. And so I thought that there was no gas. I didn't even try. I just thought there was no gas. So what I did was I had some fried rice. I reheated it by just pouring denatured alcohol, just ethanol on top of the stove. I lit the whole stove on fire.
Okay.
And then I reheated my fried rice on there, and it worked. But then as I was eating it, I was sitting on the couch. I heard the heater kick on. I was like, oh, wait, we had gas the entire time.
Dude.
So we still had hot water. We still had running water. We just didn't have power for a week and a half while we got that sorted out. And so the whole time we were just making jokes out of it. We had girls over, and we had basically we're like, oh, you got to help us drink this Goldschlager. It's going to go back because our fridge doesn't work anymore.
Oh my God.
When you're 23, you're really resilient. You can deal with all kinds of shit.
You can basically die and you'd still live.